Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Appropriate Productions, the high-resolution, low-brow, apolitically correct freedom of speech art company. Here today, we try to tackle, in the first part of a two-part series, the greatness that is the story of Don Quixote. Hope you enjoy. And here is the complete Don Quixote, for Cervantes and Rob Davis. What's kind of fun is that if you illustrate a story written by Plato or some other super famous name, you get to put in the credits at the cover of your book, Plato, Davis, or, whoever. Make sure they've been dead a long time so they can't sue you. This is a big deal book. This book inspired so many different stories. There's a story TV series, I think it went 3 seasons in, called Newsweek. It's referenced heavily Don Quixote. The company, Appropriate Productions, is based in part by the idea of leaning against windmills. The logo is of a tilting windmill, so it's not us that's tilting and crazy. It's actually the windmill that's gone mad. And it's going to take art to restore it. This is one of the greatest pieces of storytelling in the last 400 years. And we're going to share it with you today, visually. Because frankly, when the book was written, it was written at a time when the writers were paid by the word. There's an entire page of text. Entire page. Think of words at about that size compared to the page. An entire page devoted, we're talking paragraphs devoted just to the fact that Don Quixote left the bar. And it said something like, and in so doing, he did leave the bar, and in leaving the bar, went from inside to outside, and was changed from patron to stranger to wanderer. I mean, it was a whole page of nonsensical rambling to sort of make a bit more coin. So I actually own 2 copies of the book. I had to buy an illustrated copy so I can get through the story. Which is funny because every story I've seen that was inspired by Don Quixote inspired me tremendously, but I couldn't get through the actual, the written text. The novel itself was painfully slow. 80 words to say one thing, And I grew up with television screens and computer screens and such, so I need my information divested quickly, within seconds, because I'm a fool. Anyway, that was just playfully, by the way. So here we are, Don Quixote begins, and he's telling the story from within bars. How could this have happened? You can hear in the background my neighbor's rocking out again. He's going through mid 60s, 70s rock phase? How much? Maybe 80s. It's definitely 80s. He's been doing some Michael Jackson lately. Let's talk over him. Contained herein are the true adventures of the valorous knight Don Quixote de la Mancha, invented by Miguel de Cervantes and published in 1605. 1605! Damn! Cervantes conceived of Don Quixote whilst he was imprisoned in Seville. No, I didn't. Who told you that? You can't believe everything you read, dear reader. These adventures are true because they are a history, not a story. And contrary to these claims of the previous page, I am the adapter, not the author. Oh, and fear not, for when the characters in this history begin to speak up for themselves, I will shut up. My voice now appears in these boxes, so if you see one of these boxes, you'll know it's me speaking. He goes to describe that in a specific village somewhere in Spain, there's a gentleman named Quixote. May have had that wrong. Some authors say his name is Quixote. For argument's sake, we shall call him Quixana. So we're on our 3rd name for this fellow now. Senor Quixote's family consisted of a young niece, a plump housekeeper, and a neglected hunting dog. And he spends his time reading about books and heroics, knights and valor and honor and justice, and sacrifice and tackling ogres and dragons and wizards. doing so for virtuous reasons. He spends all of his time, he's this rich old dude, becomes increasingly inspired reading these. Eventually, after contorting his thoughts and flexing his mind day and night for months on end, our gentleman's brain snapped. And into this broken brain came the oddest fancy ever to dance into the maddest of minds. Instead of writing a book such as those he loved, he would become one. Instead of reading about knights, he would become a knight. This is right out of the Bible. This is biblical right here. This story is a very, very old man carries on for too long before deciding to set out for adventure. The idea is it's never too late to begin life as a kid, to set out and do something inspiring and fun. In turn, also, he is quite mad. The story of Don Quixote is one of an old man who sort of blurs the lines in between reality and fiction. He's not able to think of himself as just an old man spending time in an attic somewhere reading. He has to be a knight. Knights need visors, so he made one from cardboard. It probably wasn't very resistant to sword blows, but it looked the part, which is exactly what he's about. He doesn't want to fight the fights. In his mind, he is a knight. But it might be best to be a cardboard knight. Next, he needed a horse. He had an old nag that to his addled eyes looked just like the gallant steed he required. Everywhere this wonderful man goes, everywhere he goes, he sees in front of him the thing that the knight would need to pursue the quest, and not was actually in front of him. And now he needed a suitable name for himself. This time it took him just 8 days to decide upon the right name. I am Don Quixote de la Mancha. All that remained was for him to find a lady love. One cannot be a knight without a true love to be absent from, a damsel to send giants' heads to. And he's thinking, where can he find such a damsel? He needs to do heroic knight deeds, but he has to do it on behalf of the honor of a maiden of some kind. And so he gets his gear together. Before the sun is up on the hottest day of July, our knight crept through the sleeping household dressed in his armor. Clank, clunk, clunk. He goes, even though some of his armor is made out of cardboard. He carries on, looking for adventure. He comes across these two, Fear not, fair maidens, he says. The order of knighthood does not allow me to countenance injury to such high-ranking virgins as yourself. Virgins. Yeah, this is a problem our character has. Every woman he sees, his neighborhood must be surrounded by brothels, and he interprets every last one of the women working there and as only the most honorable and noble of ladies. He gets into a fight one night with a bunch of drunks. Survives, somehow. There's that Paul Simon, rocking in the background. Doom, doom. It's a good song. So, Don Quixote, knights have to be knighted, so he won't leave town from the place whose drunken thugs he beat up with a stick in the dark of night until the bar owner knights him. And in Don Quixote's mind, he's being knighted by a king, of course. And he sets off to go save the honor of some maidens. Here's a fellow beating up a fellow tied to a tree. Don Quixote insists he unties him. And then struts away. Like, it's actually a pretty funny story. If you get past the 9,000 words, it's freaking hilarious. There's tons of wonderful irony in it. He's always getting into fights over nonsense. Here's him jousting, trying to prove a point through a fight, sorry. Only his horse can't handle the weight of a 90-pound 90-year-old man. Oh, my tongue is getting twist-tied here. He gets beat up a lot. He wakes up and his family is concerned. All these books have been driving their uncle mad. The only way to save him is to get rid of the books about the knights. While he's recovering, they destroy it all. He wakes up and says, "My study, where's my study?" That's the problem. It's gone, hasn't it? Gone? Gone. Stolen, in fact. Stolen study in this day and age. Because she doesn't want it, she wants it to go away. She wants it to be nice and polite. She says, "A wizard wizarded it away. Wizarded it away." That was fun to say. An enchanter, no less. He just pushed it. Just like that. And it was gone. Only what they're doing is getting Don Quixote worked up. What more calls for a knight than a dragon and a wizard going around stealing books about another knights? And so he sets off. And he encounters, very quickly on in the story, our sidekick, Sancho Panza, described as a harmless dolt. The two set off to go and make their name. And yeah, do they ever? Right out of the gates, one of the first things that comes across, Sancho's trying to get a measure. He's been promised endless gold and wealth and women and a secure place to set up his family once Don Quixote has his kingdom, after all their adventures are finished. And early on, this is one of the most famous parts of the story. This is where the tiddly windmill story comes from. Don Quixote, this is his first big feat with Sancho. He sees Sancho's trying to get a measure of his knight, who he's going to be following around. Don Quixote says, "We shall enrich ourselves on the spoils, for giants are an evil breed and a lawful prize." "What giants?" he says. "Those giants over there, the ones with long arms. They're waving at us, look." "You're mistaken, senor. Those are windmills." Our boy, Don Quixote here, has gone so mad with the vision of himself as heroic that he sees fixed buildings, windmills, as giants marauding the countryside. And he goes and charges at a building. He doesn't give up. Nope. He climbs and whacks and stabs and attacks and is finally beaten soundly by the windmill. This is a classic sin. Man versus wall. There's a lot of depth in that. There's a lot of symbolism and metaphor in that man versus wall story. This is what a lot of Don Quixote the tale is. He's going through all these quests. He has to save a madman lost on a cliff at one point. He gets into fights with people over the silliest of misunderstandings. He sees brothel servers as beautiful princesses whose honor needs to be proven through quests. And he fights windmills, buildings. Here he's killing a guy for no good reason. There's a love story in the background. There's so much depth, I'm only going to cover it lightly. But he keeps getting tangled up into other people's plots and stories. This is a classic one too. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So these men are troubled. Don Quixote comes across them. They've been cursed. And here is the savage basilisk of the mountains. It's just this poor woman who wants to be left alone, only she's too beautiful. The men can't keep themselves together. They can't focus on their work or their daily responsibilities. They just fall around everywhere. Now, if any more of you kill yourselves over me, don't blame me for being beautiful. Blame yourselves for being men. She really is beautiful. What is it? Who cares? Let's follow her. She wants to kill them. You know? So Don Quixote protects her honor because of what a virtuous man he is. Surrounded only by virtue, his squire virtuous, his horse virtuous, his horse very... Oh no. Oh no. And the townspeople he just stopped from following her around see some sort of irony and hypocrisy, and they beat up his horse. And he gets involved to save the horse and more of the beatings. He gets beat up a lot. He gets beat up a lot in this story. And here he meets the damsel of his quest. Left-handed one, Meritones, who's a freakish servant girl with fine breasts who entertains the mule driver. But in his eyes, Meritones is a freakishly beautiful princess with fine morals who has fallen in love with Don Quixote. Here's this freakishly beautiful woman. She's going to find a man in the middle of the night to sort of, do her thing. Only Don Quixote gets involved. This is perfect music in the background. I gotta thank my neighbor for the soundtrack. The body is too bruised to satisfy thine own desire. The scuffle wakes up the intended, recipient of her attentions. And a fight ensues. She's not supposed to be there. He's looking for her. She tries to hide and winds up in another guy's bed, who kicks her out. She is not having that. Now everybody's fighting over this one goofy woman. Sancho's and Don Quixote once again have their butts beaten. Only they think they've been given a quest to go and save something on behalf of her honor. It's not even altogether clear. It's complete nonsense. It's wonderful, glorious nonsense. The first quest, he goes off to prove the honor. He's found some sort of swarm of monstrous beasts. He thinks this has to do with the wizard who stole his books. So he charges into battle, bravely. Sancho says, wait, Grace, it's not more witchcraft, it's the sheep. And he bravely fights the sheep until oh God. I forget the term. Whatever you call the guys, the pastoralists who walk around with the slings and protect the sheep from lions. And I think it's every 15, 20 pages. Don Quixote gets his ass kicked, trying to be noble. But he doesn't stop. He doesn't quit. Mostly because he's mad. But the reason why the story retains relevance is because of the purity of intent. It has so much to do with what underpins action, It's almost as important that his actions are meant as heroically knightish, I think that's a word, altruistic and knightly as any person can be. It's as important that he is a hero as it is that he's completely insane and doing heroic things in all of the wrong ways. Both of them are equally important. He's the greater fool. In economics, the term greater fool is to denote the concept of the person who invents. So somebody who keeps on opening up new businesses and none of them really work out, but he keeps pursuing his dream and hires other people to fill in the gaps. So maybe somebody's got a construction company and he has a bunch of things. He has to hire a bunch of people to make the company work. He's got to hire specialists. He has to buy tools and things like that. Even though his company doesn't work, he hired so many people along the way and bought so much equipment that helped other people pay for their rent and pay for their goods. And those people were able to pay for their dreams. That even though the greater fool never accomplishes anything himself in life, everyone around him, he's like a living boon. So even worst case scenario, Don Quixote is sort of like an economic raider fool. Just being near him increases your opportunity for success at his cost, even though he's doing it nobly. There's a lot of there's a lot of Don Quixote in Captain America, except he's not a crazy old man. He does recognize, the character Captain America definitely recognizes the sort of Sisyphusian struggle, the impossible nature of trying to fight a fight that can give freedom to all humans in a way that it's basically permanent, even if you have to defend it all the time, or even just time from time. Doing something so audaciously, in such a grand way, is sort of the perfect symbol for a Sisyphusian or a Quixotic struggle. You know, something that can't happen, but the very pursuit of it is so noble. I'm sure I'm babbling on in circles here, but there's something so important and relevant about the idea of Don Quixote. Part of the issue today, I think, is the people who are tearing down statues, and not to get stupefyingly political here, but just to bear with me for a second. Everybody sees themselves as their own hero. So the people who see Trump as a super virtuous guy and everything he does right see themselves in their own way as supporting a Quixotic mission. Meanwhile, the celebrities see Trump as some kind of endless tyrant, and anything they can do to undermine him and take him out of power is their own Quixotic mission. Meanwhile, in Portland, there's kids setting fires to courthouses and such because their mission is Quixote. It's like all of these sort of movements happening in North American culture right now are basically Quixotic movements in that they're historically illiterate, they're half mad, they kind of have good intentions, but without reflection, they're just causing harm everywhere they go. They don't conduct themselves as endearingly as Don Quixote, though, no matter which side of the political aisle they find themselves on. This is the story of being so inspired with goodness that you become mad. And it's impossible to determine if you're doing better or worse to yourself and others around you as a result. Hell of a thing to base a company on. Well, let's get back to some of the story here. So, I kind of rambled through one of the missions, one of the quests that happened throughout, but as we can see, this one ends also with a round of severe beatings and stonings. Even if he gets some good licks in, it's a lot of humility to be a hero. And here we have Chapter 8, where Don Quixote chases a naked madman through the mountains. The madman is convinced that Don Quixote is chasing him, where Don Quixote is convinced he's trying to save the man who's running from him. He's not quite naked. Sorry, that was my bad. We'll see why. I'm not completely crazy. But we'll see. Anyway. So the crazy man running through the mountains agrees to tell Don Quixote why he is running around the mountains by himself, lonesome. But there's one condition. You must not interrupt me, not once. This is an important story to this man. Cardenio's tale. And he goes to explain his tale. I can't remember it myself. I remember it being boring. And then Don Quixote interrupts and says, Amadis, hadst thou said thy Lucinda was a reader of chivalric romance, I should have known all along what a wondrous creature she must be. Amadis is among the finest of all knights. And he just loses it. He loses his shit. Attacks him. I asked you not to interrupt, he says, screaming. And knocks him out and runs off. Don Quixote's not giving up. He has pity and sympathy on his madness. He shall go up mad on the mountaintop. He thinks somehow this is going to be the cure to the quest, as if he can go mad on the mountain. It'll somehow save this madman. Sancho begs him not to. He says, I want you to watch me, and then tell Dulcinea what I do for her. Sancho says, I'll quick look at the madness before I go, but I can't handle my... And then he starts dancing. And here's the... There is a naked man on the mountain, but it's not the right guy. It turns out to be Don Quixote. Slaps himself, starts, going mad. He can't handle it. Sancho can't handle the madness. He leaves Don Quixote behind. Meanwhile, some people have come together. They really want to capture this Don Quixote fellow. He's gotten out of hand. He's causing trouble everywhere. He's just left to his own devices. The townspeople need to get him, and they come up with this ridiculous idea. Because he's a knight, one of the guys who want to capture him has to dress up as this fair milady to play damsel. So they go off to look for him in the mountains. They come across the madman. The madman's, quite mad. He's getting confused over the costume. He's like, I'm not his wife, He managed to tell the actual story. And they're trying to figure out what's happening. Who's that weirdo singing? It turns out to be Sancho. He's getting Don Quixote. They're pulling their stuff together. Meanwhile, there's a girl out in the woods. Well, I think it's a fellow. I thought that was a girl pretty quickly, but they think it's a fellow because he's dressed up funny. He's got a hat. He looks like a dude who's walking around with work to do. Saints above, it's a dolly bird. He gets really upset. What kind of stunt is this you're pulling here, he says. What's the meaning of this cross-dressing? Come along, I've got some explaining to do, my girl. She explains she's actually part of this lost, love-torn triangle where the madman has discovered that the thing that sent him completely mad was actually a misunderstanding. He goes back to find the person that he had fallen in love with. And throughout it all, it turns out that Don Quixote, while completely foolish, might have actually helped out a little bit. Madness. Pure madness. I like the art, by the way. It's good storytelling. It's very good storytelling. And there's that fair maiden. Ugh. Meanwhile, Don Quixote makes his timely exit from this crazy freaking three-way love triangle nonsense that he somehow got tangled up into, but becomes arrested. Kidnapped, basically same thing, I suppose. And handed over to, God, what are they called? Those Spanish guys who are looking for non-believers. To torture them and make sure that they believe more thoroughly and such. Madness. But appropriate as well, that the man was captured and imprisoned by those who kidnap others. So Don Quixote had become possessed by this idea of knighthood. And so have these men, basically. They think that they're knights on behalf of God. Don Quixote thinks he's a knight on behalf of some kind of knightly code. Both of them are just posing, They can't tell that the men who've imprisoned Don Quixote are themselves in a prison just as much as they put him into as well. Some amazing storytelling here. That's the end of part 1. We have another half of the book to cover of Don Quixote. This has been Appropriated Productions. Thanks for watching, and stay apolitically correct, my friends.